all eyes this morning and over the weekend on hill country in Texas, where, of course, the Guadalupe River got 15 to 20 inches of rain, flooded, and now there are 82 dead, including over 24 children, many of whom were part of the Camp Mystic camp that was happening down there, as it has for going on 8 decades. A name that many of you in Kansas City will remember and be familiar with is Brett Anthony. He was here in Kansas City with KCTV5 for several years. He is now the chief meteorologist at CBS 19 KYTX in Tyler, Texas. Brett, it's great to have you back in Kansas City on KCMO. And let's just start off with what makes that part of Texas unique to these kinds of floods?
Good morning, Pete. Thank you for having me. I just want to say, here in East Texas, we really feel for the folks in Central Texas and the Hill Country. It's just when we heard about the news coming out, I mean, just the pit of your gut just kind of drops. But that area is especially hilly. It's very dry. We've had a drought there recently. It's almost like concrete, and all of that hill country funnels down into the north and south fork of the Guadalupe River, which then funnels into the river. So the rain starts back in the hills, drains downhill off that very hard soil and into the rivers, and then the water just started to rise rapidly.
And what was the storm that was feeding all these heavy rainfalls?
It was Tropical Storm Barry that went ashore in Mexico, and then that moisture, the remnant moisture, moved up through Mexico and into central Texas. You couple that with just an unusually high amount of moisture in the atmosphere from the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, you're talking about an area that's only about 3 to 4 hours away from the Gulf of Mexico. So there's always a moisture fetch there. So you put that on top with the remnants of very added moisture, and then you have a little twist in the atmosphere that moves through that area Thursday night into Friday morning, and it stalls. We're at the time of the year where the jet stream is so weak that the winds just don't push these storms. And so that storm stalls. You have all that moisture, and it just unfolded from there. We had thunderstorms that just sort of turned over into just areas of heavy rain. The clouds cooled. It was, I mean, absolutely the worst case scenario, to where the cloud tops were cooling so more ice crystals can form. And of course, they become more raindrops. And so the raindrops then fall to earth. And then you start picking up, as you mentioned, 15 to 20 inches of rainfall in that area.
I've seen that this Texas Hill Country area, which is basically west of Austin and San Antonio, is called and dubbed Flash Flood Alley. And is that just a combination of basically topography, geology, and climate, or is there more to it than that?
I think it's a combination of all three of those. The fact that we do have some really unusually high amounts of humidity in that area, the topography of hills, the type of soil. It's so hard, as you know, in Kansas City, when we have a longer stretch of dry weather and then suddenly it rains, the soil's like concrete. It has no way to absorb or soak into the soil, and so it just runs off, and it runs off at a high rate that flash flooding can occur. And that's why it's called flash flooding. We go from maybe some higher water to all of a sudden you're in a flood, and you're within a flood in 45 minutes or less.
Unbelievable. Brett Anthony is here. Of course, he was a meteorologist in Kansas City, most recently with KCTV5. He is now the chief meteorologist at CBS affiliate down in Tyler, Texas. So the time lapse, I'm sure you've seen these videos. To me, there was I think it was all of 2 minutes that a part of the Llano River in Texas flooded. And the video is just, I mean, it's unbelievable to watch this roadway get completely covered in the span of 2 minutes. And it just looks like a completely different plot of land than it did 2 minutes earlier. With those videos in general, how unusual is the pace at which these floods occurred?
Oh, well, the National Weather Service out of the San Antonio and Austin office, they were talking about 5 to 7 inch an hour rainfall rates. So they were mentioning this happening every up to 75 years, 25 to 75-year rainfall rates. But flooding like this, we're talking about a once in a generation flood, or a once in 1,000 years, or a 0.1% chance of having rainfall rates like this and the rivers rising like that. Now, it's happened in the past, I think 4 or 5 times in that area. So it's not something it's unseen before, but certainly the scope and the impact that it's had, that is something that is going to be remembered forever.
Now, the reaction, of course, and the warnings we know about, especially Camp Mystic and the 24 plus campers that have been lost there in this tragedy. National Weather Service, as I've read, issued a flash flood watch 12 hours prior. There was a flash flood warning issued 3 hours prior. We won't speculate on what these camp leaders knew and did not know, but do you feel like, from your expertise in doing this your career, that was a serviceable amount of lead time from the National Weather Service with those two watches and warnings in particular?
Oh, absolutely. And from the Weather Prediction Center, that's an arm of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They had put an outlook for excessive rainfall over that area Thursday, so the day prior to all this happening. So with that in mind, and the fact that the flood watch was issued, and then the warnings were starting to move from west of the Kerrville area into Kerr County throughout the night, but that initial flash flood warning was around 1:30 in the morning, where there was a flood advisory or flood warning, I think, at that time, and then the flash flood warning came later in the night. The challenge there is, how do you get folks to know about that warning in the middle of the night? You could put out wireless emergency alerts on phones, but how many people have their phones with them at that time? The water rose so rapidly. We're talking about a rise on the Guadalupe River of 26 feet in 45 minutes. So the water just swallows those campgrounds. It's just a perfect storm of everything coming together just in the most unfortunate way for this to occur.
When we get those severe weather events, I mean, we've all had it, right, where our phones just go off, whether we want them to or not, or whether it directly impacts us or not. And I assume a lot of that does come from the National Weather Service when it happens. But are you saying they could have done that, they didn't do it, or it's more of a case of, even if you do it, do people have their phones with them if they're camping on a campsite and it's 2:00 in the morning?
Right. So that's what I'm saying, is that they put out those warnings. Now, if then somebody's not looking at their phone, or those the phones aren't turned on to where it makes an audible sound, if it's just a buzz or something like that, then they wouldn't hear it initially. So the warnings came out, I mean, well in advance. In fact, there was, I'm looking at, we have something called the Slack channel where we can monitor what the National Weather Service is thinking, and it's a way that they can speak with the media and emergency managers. And so, at 12:33 in the morning, they were issuing flood warnings and talking about having flash flood guidance 175% of normal in this area. So that was just west of Kerr County. And so they were saying some cell mergers were about to take place in central Kerr County, and they are going to go with a flash flood warning for northwest Bandera and central Kerr County, so Kerrville and Camp Mystic, at 1:06 a.m. So that's well in advance of the water ever getting there. But it's a matter of, how do you get that warning out to the people, and how can they get that, aside from going door to door and knocking on every door, and some of that was happening. How do you get the word out? It's more of a social science issue at this point, is how can you better communicate and get the word out so that folks take it seriously? Because we have so many warnings. They were talking about outdoor warning systems maybe solving this. But if you issue a tornado warning, Pete, what are you supposed to do? Shelter in place.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have worked in this instance.
That's an excellent point. And listen, I'm old school. Even as a millennial, I still have a weather radio in the house because I just see value in it, especially in our part of the world for tornadoes in particular. I've turned it off for a lot of other things. I don't need to be woken up at 2 a.m. about a winter weather advisory. But I think that, the old school weather radio may have to come back to prominence. What do you think about that?
You can't beat the old school weather radio. Yeah, and you can filter out what warnings you want. I know in the past I've had to filter out dense fog advisories in Kansas City because we get so many in the middle of summer, right?
Yeah.
But you can put on tornado warnings. I would say keep the flash flood warnings on, because those are so important. I mean, flash flooding on average every year kills 127 people. It's more than lightning. It's more than tornadoes. Only heat exceeds flash flood warnings. So flash flood warnings are a real threat that we all need to take seriously.
That's a great point. Well, Brett, it's great to hear your voice again. I'm glad you're doing well down there. You got the big Chiefs position down in Tyler, Texas. We miss you in Kansas City, but we really appreciate your input on this and would love to stay in touch.
Absolutely, Pete. And know that I miss KC. Always will be in my heart as one of the most favorite places I've ever lived. Love the Chiefs, love the Royals still. So, we're down here in East Texas, close to Patrick Mahomes' hometown, and root for the Chiefs every Sunday.
I love that. Yeah, we can't let you become a Cowboys fan down there. Can't do it.
Not going to happen.
All right. Well done there, Brett. Thank you for being here on KCMO.
Thanks, Pete, for having me.
You bet. Brett Anthony did a great job in Kansas City with KCTV5, now the Chief down at KYTX in Tyler, Texas.